Well, I just had no idea how annoying that techno track would get. Everybody, welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. We are live. Just a few, the fun panic of getting ready to start a live stream and then realizing, oh, after I nuked my Windows install and built everything up from scratch, I forgot to replace all of my OBS settings. So I'm scrambling to try and get everything put back together. And my countdown, I broke my countdown. So Steve DeRoche built that really awesome intro graphic for me. I've just got to figure out how to make the clock work again. So I don't know. It seems like we don't have a lot to talk about. Nothing exciting is happening in the world of technology today. Oh wait, that's not true. So normal intros, normal housekeeping. I want to get through all of that first. Thank you so much for tuning in, for joining. We're going to see if we can keep this podcast rolling and not have massive meltdowns. I am Juan Carlos Bagnell, the SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of the SGGQA podcast. QA stands for question and answer. And that's obviously because I like to make these interactive conversations. So if you're catching this live, you can join into the live chat. I'm seeing folks on Mixer. I'm seeing Kiwi Mad Dog 420. So a Mad Dog weed aficionado from New Zealand, I'm assuming, is on Twitch. And then, of course, we've got the YouTube live stream. And I already have a couple super chats. So a huge shout out to Aman, and then another huge shout out to Total Tech. Thanks so much for supporting production on this podcast. The mandatory piece of housekeeping before we really jump into some of the topics and we start getting into conversations. I think this might end up being the last live streaming podcast on YouTube. In June, we will be switching over to Twitch as the main live stream host. And then from there, I'll be uploading the podcast to YouTube after the fact. But we're going to be moving the live streaming portion of this over to twitch.tv, twitch.tv/SomeGadgetGuy. I'm still trying to clean up my my Twitch page and my Twitch channel. So I might tap some people out in the community for some help. But I finally finalized all of my travel plans for Computex, and it seems like I'm going to be on an airplane just before we would normally be going live for next week's show. So I will have a pre-recorded podcast. I'm going to have a creator chat going out next Monday for the podcast channel, but we won't have a live stream next week. Then I'm going to hit Computex. Coming back from Computex, I don't know if I'm going to be doing a live stream immediately after I get back, but the first podcast that we do in June is going to be live streamed to Twitch. So that's where we're at for the channel. Just in terms of some other fun techie stuff that has been going up. We're going to be talking about my experiences with the OnePlus 7, but I do have a video out now just kind of talking about the philosophy of worth itness, and I hope you guys and gals and tech fans will check out a video just trying to get a handle on the current state of tech reviewing. So that's something where I've been catching a lot of flack just for saying like, hey, other phones could be worth it, and then people have to come rolling into my comments to go, because there's a phone that's cheaper. And you're like, okay, cool. It's not really what I was talking about, but apparently if all you care about is a chipset and the lowest possible price tag, then correct. Then you have made an argument about worth itness that's different than the argument I am making about worth itness. So we'll be getting into that more. There was something else that I wanted to bring up. Oh, yes, sorry. Let me go back into screen share. So this took way too long. I had always planned on making these two little banners on SomeGadgetGuy.com, and I am not a web developer and I am not a graphic designer, so it took me a lot longer than I was expecting to. So let me get this up here. So just scrolling back down, of course, if you go to SomeGadgetGuy.com, you'll see this handy little support banner. You can click on that and get all kinds of affiliates and links that can help support production on this channel. And then right under that, I've been doing my camera reviews. So if you click on this, you get every single camera review I've done all the way back to like, I think 2012, I was more just doing camera samples, but really into 2013, the general format that I use today, I've been trying to hold somewhat consistently to. Some tests are different. I've let go of other tests like transitions and blooming effects. But you can go all the way back. You can see the creepy tunnel from 2013 when they had completely different street lamps. But what I had always meant to put up here as a companion to the camera review banner is, of course, an audio review banner. So now when we click on the audio reviews, there's the SomeGadgetGuy master audio review list. Huzzah! I've finally gone back and cataloged these. Now, this one's a little bit different. I'm only going back to around 2016. If you go back to 2016, starting with the iPhone 7, and that's when we started doing a real audio review over at Pocket Now. So a lot of these are from my Pocket Now days, but that format has only been going strong for a couple years. So you can go back and you can see all of the commentary and talk about audio deep dives, and you can see all of the same charts and graphs. They've all been consistently recorded. I still have all of my samples dating back to 2016 to compare different phones and headphone performance. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, I do have like speaker samples that date back to like 2012, but those were recorded a little differently than I'm recording them now. So if you were to play them next to each other, like if you really wanted to hear how an LG G3 sounded against, a OnePlus 7 Pro, that wouldn't be consistently recorded. Like I changed how I started capturing my speaker samples about 2 years ago. So unfortunately that doesn't hold. But I mean, those old videos are ridiculous. It's just a bunch of sample songs and then like a movie test. I mean, it's literally just 5 minutes of just playing audio and then playing audio exactly the same way. So those weren't reviews. The reviews are started much sooner. But I now have those as full catalog. So the full proper list of every camera deep dive I've ever done, and then the full proper list of every audio deep dive I've ever done, and you've got plenty of media to catch up on. Fair warning for all of the recent videos, the at least from last year to now, after I left Pocket Now because we couldn't find a way to properly subsidize the real camera reviews and the real audio reviews, and they took a lot longer to produce than just normal, hey, I took the phone out of the box kinds of videos. Those are all Patreon. So those need some additional help in funding them, and the only thing that has made sense so far has been direct contributions from people in the Patreon audience. This is a topic I think I'm going to put up on the Patreon either this week or next week, just to kind of start getting some feedback. I have a goal on Patreon for getting some additional help. So at a certain tier of contributions, I want to bring on a part-time producer and another part-time editor, because I'm not a great editor and I'm a functional producer. I'm an audio nerd. Like, I used to run set sound and location sound and voiceover recording. So a lot of this stuff is totally homegrown and home taught. And, I'm probably not the most efficient at it. So I want to bring on some additional help. But I also want to talk to the folks over on Patreon about properly subsidizing to see if we can get away from YouTube. My 3-year plan would be to reach a tier of contribution from people directly that we could just start submitting videos directly to archive.org for everyone to watch freely. That's going to mean having a fan base, having a group of people who are willing to contribute directly, who are willing to share, who are willing to support, and then no ads, no sponsors, no interruptions to the content. No, I don't have to worry about what I say in one editorial because it might piss off a company that might want to sponsor me later. It would be the freest possible exchange of content and commentary that I could come up with, and should transcend all borders. You would have direct, if you wanted to download those videos in the highest possible quality to watch offline, you would be able to do that. So that would take some time. That would take a lot of support. It would probably mean about 3 times the current level of support that I'm currently at on Patreon. But, you know, it would also mean we would be able to find other monetization outlets outside of Patreon. But right now, Patreon is the best solution that I have for charging people the least amount possible so that we can most fairly monetize content that YouTube does not help. My videos do not show up in search or get shared or even notify my subscribers like they should. And so I would really like to find that way, that opportunity where, again, I can put my money where my mouth is. I can complain about YouTube all day long, but then I still have to upload videos to YouTube. So this would be one potential solution. And anyone who has any other ideas or any other designs on ways that we could diversify, I'd love to hear it. But while the Patreon is still growing, and it's still tracking month over month, I'm seeing very positive results from that. That would be sort of the dream end goal. Walk away from YouTube, have a direct relationship with an audience, come up with commentary, and come up with ways that we can make this fair for everybody. And then also, you know, knowing that this is also offering sort of a public good, that you can enjoy this content free of interruption or advertising or any other barrier to entry. So that's the gig. That's our housekeeping. I'm going to take a quick sip of water from the tastiest coffee mug on the planet, especially if you like pickle brine. Oh, that is so delicious, because podcasting is more than just the mega pickles. Man, we have a ton of commentary already launching into James Vincent. I'm seeing Yolanda Rowe, LeBaron Burton, Bojan Pavlovic, Aditya, what's up? I'm seeing Gorgra, let's see, Waris, Sneed. Like I mentioned, we also have a couple folks floating in on Mixer and Twitch. So yeah, I think this is gonna be a really fun show. This is gonna be good times. Let me get this out of the way here. And get this out of the way here. Okay, so jumping into the top news, obviously, the hugest, most bigliest story of the weekend or of the last week. And I feel like without a doubt, this is what everybody has been talking about online. I have to go into screen share here. And huge impact, ramifications for the entire technology industry would be NVIDIA's 2020 fiscal results. Looking back on the last fiscal quarter, Q1 2020, and unfortunately we saw some pretty poor numbers coming out of NVIDIA. I'm absolutely joking. I do want to cover just a couple little tech topics here. NVIDIA numbers are down. I just plugged a 2080 Ti into my desktop, my workstation. I'm having some motherboard issues. There's something funky going on with my Threadripper, the motherboard I'm currently using from MSI, and my RAM. And even for the system not being fully optimized, it's still just a monster of a workstation compared to what I was working on before, which is, again, sort of impressive for where we're at in terms of technology. But NVIDIA, just real quick, the bullet points: GPU for gaming segment, way down. Crypto-related sales fell 74%. Data center business sales down 10%. Self-driving cars up 14%, and the Quadro, your pro workstation grade graphics, hovering around a 6% increase. And then there's just a ton of competition flooding the market for AI, where NVIDIA used to dominate. So some disappointing numbers that the crypto buzz, we're still feeling the ramifications and the fallout from all those people that were trying to jump into Bitcoin, trying to jump into Ethereum, totally inflating the value of all this stuff, and now that has come crashing back down. And I don't feel NVIDIA's moves in terms of next gen gaming have really excited player bases. You start talking about ray tracing and stuff like that. So if you're floating on GTX hardware, you're still probably doing fine, especially if you're not trying to game at 4K at 240 frames per second or something like that. So I'll be curious to see how other big news topics start impacting the feel of where we're at with that kind of mobile and sort of desktop grade performance. Gabaletta, unless you plan to do a lot of ray tracing, not really. So the 2080 Ti, what's exciting is it is a monster of a card. And it seems to be doing a much better job for video rendering in my rig than my 1080 Ti did. It's funny when you sit there and you track the actual rendering performance as you're editing a video, and the 2080 does a phenomenally better job of stacking up data, filling its RAM, and then moving that data through the pipeline of your video. The issue I think many would fairly point to would be, is that worth the higher price tag? I'm not sure, but the thing is, because I'm an army of one in getting all this stuff done, that bump and that improvement has been handy, because not only is it faster, it's also proven to be a bit more stable, where I would have a ton of issues with my camera reviews because I'm just doing a bunch of photos back and forth. I'm trying to do HDR versus non-HDR, and that rapid back and forth, like comparing of photos and split screening and stuff like that, never really rendered well from my 1080 Ti. So I would have to do a much longer CPU render instead. And now that's improved. So that for me has been worth those additional costs. But I'm wondering if I would have been in the same boat if I just gone with the 2080 as opposed to the 2080 Ti. But that's a longer conversation. Let's see. From Sharil Abdul Rahman, I'm also thinking hard if I should get that $80 RX 570 card. Yeah. So I mean, AMD with some. Again, if we're talking in that mid-tier, I don't think $80 is budget range anymore. I mean, the kind of performance that you can eke out from an $80 to $100 dedicated GPU is phenomenal. From Doomer, does the RTX 2080 feel nice in the hand? Well, I mean, it's like you can feel the rough spots on the back of the PCB. So I don't know if I'd want to hold it in my hand. Like, it doesn't feel as nice in the hand as like a Galaxy S10 with the rounded screen. So, but the nice thing is that the 2080 doesn't have as much glare, right? So if you have a Galaxy S10, you have like way more glare on the screen than you do with the 2080. Jordis Pilatus 2080 camera review, please. That's hilarious. You guys crack me up. Gabaletta, I think the 2060 will serve most people well with no problems. So on Newegg, we did like a rapid, super fast. We had one of our Newegg ninjas, Mike, build a PC while we were doing the show live in the second half of the show. So he had 30 minutes to get an Intel build to post. And I think our total bill of materials was under $500. So we were just above console pricing. To make a machine that we felt was a competitive 1080p gaming box. And the stats on the GTX 1660 are phenomenal at that price. If you're talking 1080p gaming and trying to keep open world games like an Assassin's Creed over 30 frames per second, and maybe floating often around that 60 frame per second, threshold that we really want to see, man, that 1660 is a good buy. And again, that's competing in that same ballpark as like, AMD 580s. And it's just, I'm crazy excited when we can see some of this budget gear really offering some substantial benefits over just like dedicated graphics and stuff. Bored at work. Oh my, what is Juan complaining about now? When am I ever not complaining about things? I'm always complaining about stuff. I love it. I am gonna fail at your name, but your last name is Adil. I have noticed that using CUDA enabled that the video quality isn't as good as CPU render, and using variable bitrate, the bitrate never held. I had some significant issues, especially in looking at different types of smartphone video, where that recompression was was kind of a killer. Like, I really want to show what the native camera quality is from one of these phones, and then I'll let YouTube screw it up. But I want to feed YouTube the best possible version of what I can show. Like, I want to feed YouTube as close to native quality off of these devices after I've put it into a timeline and edited it. So, you know, that means I'm doing 80 megabit renders. So I, like, off of my Panasonic, where I'm doing all of the talking head B-roll, that's a 100 megabit video file. On an LG G8 or on an LG V40, you can force that camera into an 80 megabit per second data rate. I mean, just insanely huge video files. And so if I want to show that at native quality, that CUDA render would suck a lot of the sharpness and clarity out of the final product. That has improved with whatever's new in the 2080 Ti. NVIDIA has improved that GPU compute significantly, and I can see those differences looking back and forth when I just render a piece of 4K video from my 1080 versus when I look at it from my 2080 on similar, you know, compressed data bit rates. But again, whether or not that's a benefit for you it's a tall price tag. It's pretty big. But this is also one of the reasons why I would love to get to a place where this content is self-funded. When I do one of my camera deep dive reviews, we're talking 20 to 30 minute videos at 50 to 80 megabit data rates, and you end up with final files that are in the 9 to 12 gigabyte range. And if you wanted to see what that really looked like, you're never going to get there on YouTube. When I share that video on YouTube, you're seeing what it would look like to share a video from one of these phones. When you look at it, you know, like, oh, camera comparison, what you're seeing isn't the output from that phone. At its full quality, what you're seeing is what it looks like to share the output from that phone. So if I put that up on Archive, and we can self-fund these, and I don't have to worry about even just the little bit of scratch that I'm getting from YouTube monetization, then you would be able to download the native 10 gigabyte file and really dig into the image quality there. I think it would be kind of an exciting change, because I think we're still comparing smartphone cameras based on horribly compressed output. You know, when you have to feed it through YouTube for people to share, like, you lose a lot in that translation. From Matt Tyler, why do uploads on YouTube or social media and WhatsApp downscale the quality of your videos and images? Might sound stupid, but I'm new to all this rendering stuff, learning as I go. So when you upload a really large file, YouTube has to foot the bill for the bandwidth on people watching it. That is the relationship. They're going to monetize the video. You get a cut of the monetization once you reach a certain tier, but it doesn't make sense for a lot of the content on YouTube to stream at its full quality. It's just, that would be a huge bandwidth hit. Now, what I'm doing specifically for something like a camera comparison, that could be, or a camera review, I should say, that could be a benefit for someone to be able to see what the native quality of that product looks like. So I have a very niche or a very specific concern that isn't addressed by YouTube compressing this video so that it streams better. My design would be, if you want to watch it as a stream, you can watch it as a stream. It's going to stream at like 1080. It's going to be fine. You're going to be able to get the general overview. But if you want to see the minutia details of what I'm seeing when I look at this footage natively on my workstation 4K display, then you'd also be able to do that too. Let's see. Oh, and Doomer, a couple other people moving over to the Twitches. All right, seeing some chatter about Twitch versus YouTube and chat and picture-in-picture. That's actually something Doomer brings up a good point. One of the reasons kind of why I want to move to Twitch is if you go to Twitch and then you want to watch this while you do something else on a mobile device, you don't have to pay for additional YouTubes. So I do have just a couple other quick stories, and then we can get into the biggie. I know I kind of teased this as the Huawei episode, and we're already a half hour into this. There's a political story about AT&T. I got to knock this out because I love the soapbox about tech and politics. AT&T promised 7,000 new jobs to get its tax break, and instead, it cut 23,000 jobs. This is coming by way of Ars Technica, written up by John Brodkin from the article. AT&T has cut more than 23,000 jobs since receiving a big tax cut at the end of 2017, despite lobbying heavily for the tax cut by claiming it would create thousands of jobs. AT&T in November 2017 pushed for the corporate tax cut by promising to invest an additional $1 billion in 2018, with CEO Randall Stephenson saying that every $1 billion AT&T invests is 7,000 hard hat jobs. These are not entry-level jobs. These are 7,000 jobs of people putting fiber in ground, hard hat jobs that make $70,000 to $80,000 per year. The corporate tax cut was subsequently passed by Congress, signed into law by President Trump on December 22nd, 2017. The tax cut reportedly gave AT&T an extra $3 billion in cash in 2018, but AT&T cut capital spending and kept laying people off after the tax cut. 23,328 jobs gone. So I feel like we keep running this experiment, liberal or conservative, where we give corporations and individuals at the top of the mountain way more money, and then never really seems to amount to like any kinds of improvements that we keep getting promised. Like when George Herbert Walker Bush called trickle-down economics voodoo economics. It's one of my favorite lines from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it just doesn't seem to work. So 23,000 jobs gone, and AT&T got $3 billion more. So that's great. From Gabaletta, gasp. A corporation cutting jobs to make a profit? Say it ain't so. And from Abraham Artemis. So what's the surprise there? From Gary Fleshner, Bueller. I was sorry. The one of the main reasons why I wanted to put that story up front, I was just having a conversation with my uncle. My uncle Tony is also one of the top tech nerds in my family, and he really, I mean, it's funny. You know how we all have our things? His thing is storage. Dude, like, gets off on NAS RAID arrays. He's got a friend at a major hard drive manufacturing company that kind of pushes him some stuff on the down low. I mean, it's hilarious. He's working on a new I just had to upgrade, so now I'm on 2 different boxes and like a 20 terabyte array, and like we're gonna see how that goes. It's just like it's cute. It's really cute. But he was asking me about 5G and whether or not he should get a 5G phone, and increasingly 5G looks like vaporware to me. For any of you here in North America, I just want you to do a quick speed test. Like, go to a place where you've got good signal on your smartphone, you know you've got good reception, and run a speed test and see, does your speed even stack up against the theoretical maximums of 3G? So you get that LTE data connection, but your backhaul is the same as what it was when we were on HSPA. You know, if you're talking, you know, like, oh, I got a 50 megabit down, you're not even scratching what LTE can do. You don't even have access to what real 4G is if you're talking like 50 or 60 meg down. You know, especially when LTE and sort of the expanded specifications of LTE can support, you know, with some tricks, gigabit. So 5G is going to be a radically more expensive way to move people over to the exact same backhaul that they currently have. And it drives me nuts, especially because we can be fairly confident that we're going to see the same transition that we saw with LTE. So once LTE started really building out, all of the carriers pushed the majority of their bandwidth over to LTE. So the few people who had LTE-enabled phones got crazy fast access. It felt amazing, and they became the best advertisements for why you should upgrade your phone and get an LTE-enabled phone. But then once everyone kind of made that transition, LTE networking crashed. I mean, it's exactly the same types of speeds that I could get on HSPA, on 3G. And the same thing's going to happen to LTE. You've got all these journalists out there going, oh, wow, I did a speed test 10 feet away from a 5G tower, and I got gigabit. And you're like, cool. That's going to evaporate as soon as 10 other people are on that same tower. Like, that's going to disappear when that bandwidth has to be shared in a major metropolitan area. And heaven help you if you live out in the suburbs, for the number of towers that they're going to have to put up to get reasonably the same kind of coverage on 5G towers. It's all a shell game right now. And I'm increasingly getting radicalized that, it just should be, we should make this a public work. We should make this a utility. We should take it out of the hands of corporations, because corporations aren't getting this done. We need real fiber to home. That's what we need. If we want to compete in the 21st century, we need actual fast data connections on guaranteed cables, not that can be disrupted with signal over the air, to our home. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. So that's a bummer. Matt Tyler, 5G not provided by Huawei. From James Vincent, 4G LTE is fast enough mostly. 3G HSPA isn't far off on speed. Someone look it up for me. What is the maximum data rate of HSPA? Let me see. Maximum data rate HSPA. So let's see. HSPA plus high speed. Okay, HSPA plus, the fastest 3G protocol supported data rates of 42, 84, and sometimes 168 megabit per second down for downloads and 22 meg up for uploads. That's faster than what I have in the Valley. I don't get that in the Valley. I don't get that on any carrier here in the Valley. So I don't have LTE. I am on something slower than HSPA plus. So that's silly. Go run a speed test. See, are you getting faster reliably? Are you getting faster speeds than HSPA plus? Let's cut it fair. HSPA 42 down, 22 up. Can you reliably count on 42 down, 22 up? Because something tells me that most people are not getting anywhere near consistently the actual benefits of LTE. Steve DeRoche, HSPA plus? Oh, you mean T-Mobile 4G Star? So T-Mobile was bad about that, but let's not forget that AT&T has done this to us twice. Remember, they started with 4G, and then they're doing it again with 5G-E, 5G evolution. My wife, we were driving back. We were we had to go visit some family yesterday, and we were driving back and like, wait a minute. My iPhone says it has 5G. She's got an iPhone 8 for work. And you're like, nope, it says it has 5G-E. Ronnie Webster, I just got 35 meg down, 6 up. So Ronnie Webster, you'd be fine on HSPA. You have 3G. That's what you have. Shril Abdul Rahman, 4G and 5G-E. Oh, it's such a mess. From Richie Rich Tube, the reasons why you're not getting the speeds you want, you're holding your phone. And when you get 5G, the problem is you're holding the phone. I'm holding it wrong. That's why I don't get my true 4G. From Renato Laporte, the difference is how efficient the data transfer is. A 1 gigabit per second fiber connected to a 4G network does better than connected to a 3G network. And that has been one of the major arguments for 5G, is that it's supposed to support more devices per tower. But then the actual footprint of each tower is way smaller. So we don't really get a benefit there. We have to spend a ton more. And look up the troubles that Verizon is having trying to roll out 5G, and especially using 5G as a home network, because they're finding that it does not scale. It is ridiculously more expensive, and they're probably going to start lobbying for more tax dollars. That's what's so frustrating, is I think the next play we're going to see from carriers is, man, we'd love to be competitive on this 5G. You just got to give us more tax dollars. It's the only way that we can make it work. We get to keep all the profits, but yeah, we need more money. Yeah, I wish there were some other way. So frustrating. Okay. From Lloydie86, London, UK, 12 meg down, 4 up, WTF. Oh, that's tough. From Marcel Clappert, what's the best mobile provider in your hometown, Los Angeles, Juan? So the problem with LA, because I don't really live in LA, I live in the Valley. I live closer to Encino. Is no carrier does well everywhere. Every carrier has major gaps in different spots. So like on Verizon, if I go to my local neighborhood Costco, I'm on their terrible CDMA 3G. It's just instant fallback. Like it does not have that little window of LTE just vanishes. But in my home, it's really fast. T-Mobile in my home is reasonable. Like I get 20 down, 10 up, roughly. But then when I go to like my grocery store, it's closer to that HSPA. I can usually count on around 40 down. It's so our issue in Los Angeles is we're so spread out, and this is such a huge metropolis, mega urban sprawl that no one has wall-to-wall coverage. But what we can count on is Sprint is usually the worst. When I'm driving around in the Valley, it can be from block to block whether or not I am on CDMA or LTE, and like you can see it instantly fall off driving a couple meters. Like it's pretty bad. From D Racer 35, 42 down, 3.6 up. 3.6 up on AT&T 4G LTE Plus, currently in the middle of Missouri. Like that's not you're on 3G. Congratulations, you're on 3G. Matt Tyler, 13 down, 7 up on O2 in the UK at home. Easygoing dude, 99, 15 down and barely 0.4 up. Laugh out loud. So I think we can be fairly confident 5G is vaporware, guys. This is fake. This is all fake. And it makes me crazy because we should have had all of this stuff doing so much better. We've given these corporations so much money. There's no reason for us to have crappy service like this. But they're ridiculously profitable. So by not really improving networking, by not really improving backhaul, by not offering services like fiber to home, they get to keep more and more money every year for their profit margins. So, another quick story. Oh, hey, Kiwi Mad Dog 420. In Malaysia, I'm getting 39 up and 43 down. That's pretty good. So you're one of and LGH Dotma. In the Netherlands, I get 97 down, 1.8 up. So LGH Dotma and Kiwi Mad Dog are the first two that I've seen. Oh, and Marco. Okay, Marco is the first that is legit faster than HSPA. I get 97 up, 47. I'm assuming you mean 97 down, 47 up in North Macedonia. So far I've seen 3 people who legitimately have faster than HSPA. Oh, and now a couple others. Renato is a little faster on T-Mobile in the Netherlands, and Concept Creator is faster, 110 down and 50 up. So out of this non-scientific survey of all of the people that watch the SGGQA podcast live, about 5 people have faster than 3G speeds. And we're all probably paying way more for it. All right, another quick story. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. There is another CPU attack that is affecting Intel computers, less so AMD. If you're concerned, it doesn't seem like it's a very likely exploit, but again, it's one of those where depending on what type of data you traffic and how you might be concerned about your own personal data security, you might want to look up Riddle, RIDL, and Fallout. So if you look up the Riddle and Fallout data exploits or Riddle and Fallout MDS attacks, it's another side attack that can get into very sensitive areas of your CPU cache, which can get to information that you're trying to keep private. This is something that looks like it is only currently affecting Intel computers. Again, if you're running an AMD Threadripper, this podcast not brought to you by AMD Threadripper, that you should be a bit better protected against this specific exploit. But I think across x86 land, there are still some issues for data security and privacy. Again, every time one of these stories comes out, it's just a healthy reminder to go and examine your security policies, look at what you're plugging into your computer, and just make sure that you're doing your part of the data security situation. I would also like to put another shout out there in terms of data security and data privacy. If you are currently using any services, web services, cloud services that offer up two-factor authentication, so not only do you put in a password, but then there's some other verification before that service lets you in, make sure you turn that stuff on. And this is the thing that we can help our family and friends. If we're going to be the tech resources in our families, this is a critical security perk, is making sure, hey, you use Gmail, turn on two-factor. Hey, you use Instagram, turn on two-factor. Hey, you use Twitter, turn on two-factor. Anything that allows people to log in without some other additional notification is dangerous in this day and age. While driving home from my family outing, I got a notification from Instagram that someone had logged into my Instagram account. I'm not even verified on Instagram. I'm not like a big fish. I don't have that many followers. So I had to go and change my passwords, but I would never have known had I not had two-factor authentication turned on. It just happened to me. I don't know how. I don't know why someone was wanting to get into my Instagram account, but they were able to figure out my password. So I got that notification and I was able to, log it. And thankfully, once you change your password, it instantly kills your connection to anything else on Instagram. So for the dozens of phones that I have logged into Instagram, I've now got to log in and two-factor any of the ones that I want to use. But do it. Make sure your family and friends are aware of this. It did. I am not a high-profile target. It happened to me. From Doomer, I'm curious if there's a list of social networks with two-factor authentication. I'm not sure. If anyone can find a good list of resources for services that do have two-factor enabled, please share it. Or let me know, and I think I can share a link throughout the different live chats. But it's I think this is critical. And increasingly, depending on how much you value your security, this is something that I think is going to be an easier and easier thing for bad actors to exploit, is hacking those mainframes. So let me get this out of the way here. And, where did it go? Because all I want to do... So we're getting close. I'm ahead of schedule for doing housekeeping and news. Usually it takes me like 45 minutes just to make it through the housekeeping. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone had a question. I already missed it. From Sasha Moist, two-factor equals email notification. So there are different flavors of two-factor. If you are really into government or corporate grade security, then you will probably want to work with your IT department for a really locked down app-based second authentication. And Vladimir 419 on Twitch. Microsoft and Google authentication are great. So I use anything that these services will let me use. So you can sign up two-factor for, in a lot of cases, some services will use an email. So you get an email that you then have to click on a link, and that's your second form of authenticating your password. Some will use a text message, although I think text message has been shown to be the least secure in that you can spoof phone numbers and you can sometimes circumvent that, but it's still an additional barrier. And it's one where someone has to really want to get into your account. So I think for consumers, text messaging can be fine. It's unlikely that someone is going to go through all of that effort to try and get into your Aunt Becky's Facebook account, you know? So again, you want to keep the threat in proportion to the value of the data that someone might be going after. But then I've also had great experiences using the Google and the Microsoft apps. So there's a Google Authenticator app, and it's just a ticking clock, and a passcode gets generated every minute, and then that's on a clock that syncs up with the service that you're using, and you have to have your phone out. So you log into the service, and then on your phone pops up like, oh, and this is the code you're going to use, and you put it in. And if you don't put it in a certain amount of time, it recycles to the next code, and it's a constantly moving target. And you get that notification from your service that, hey, someone tried to log into your account. So it's just an additional benefit. It's an additional perk to try and keep your data locked up and secure. But again, you know, it happened to me. Someone got my Instagram password. So stay safe out there. All right. Second half of the podcast is going to be all about Huawei and all about my experiences using the OnePlus 7. So we're going to take a little break just to talk about the community project that I am so excited to see even more people have been participating with. And I am a big fan of trying to diversify the conversation. My own personal experiences is I'm trying to get out of YouTube. That is the big goal. By 2022, I would like to have a totally public, fair, open, and free video platform to interact with people across the planet, across the globe. One of the problems with YouTube has been its increasing reliance on an algorithm that hugely prioritizes popularity and creates some of the most visceral and toxic echo chambers. I almost said something a little dirtier, but echo chambers for the tech topics that we want to get into. It prioritizes winners and losers. It forces you into, well, this phone is popular, so I'm going to spend more time talking about this phone. This topic is popular. I'm going to spend more time talking about this topic. And it punishes you if you spend any time talking about something less popular. You know, if your numbers dip, then Google stops prioritizing you in search as much. You know, so when you look at some of the top reviewers and the way that they have to keep their channels fed, it creates sort of a reliance on always seeking out the most SEO friendly topics, not always dealing with the most well-rounded or nuanced conversation. Oh, and this is another problem with YouTube too. This is from Doomer on Twitter. Recently, Minecraft YouTuber Mumbo Jumbo got nearly all of his videos claimed too. I retweeted this. I am not in the Minecraft YouTube community. I have zero relationship with these people, but I've also had issues with videos being claimed for copyright that the company that's claiming it had no legal right to use that. So there are plenty of philosophical issues for moving away from YouTube as a platform. It's just we don't have an infrastructure and we don't have the ability. And if I can start managing that transition and I can lead the way for at least one outlet as one example of how to do it yourself, then I would love to do that. So lots of concerns. In the meantime, one of the best things that we can do as a community is get more people involved in the tech discussion. And that's why I started a tiny little subreddit A tiny little subreddit, r glowing rectangles. You go to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, and it's a place for creators to put up their own videos. It's a place for people to celebrate creators that they feel deserve more attention. And it doesn't have to be videos. We've had a few articles shared as well. So if you're writing a blog and you want to try and help signal boost someone from that, I hope that this can be a resource that will grow over time and that people can use it as a discovery point. You might find someone in here that you really love their work, and then from there, you can support their channel and their production directly. And we're seeing more upvotes, we're seeing a few more comments here and there, and we're seeing more people contributing links, which is really exciting. So this is, for the last week, these are the top stories from our glowing rectangles, and number one with a bullet is the OnePlus 7 Pro unboxing by Erica Griffin. So Erica Griffin took a little time off. She needed to just spend some downtime on a proper vacation, not on a working vacation, and huge respect for her taking that time to try and get her mind right. This grind and this production grind can be, like I said, it can get really toxic. So it's tough stuff when you need to walk away because her channel takes a huge hit just for her to be able to get some breathing room, just for her to be able to take a breath. So, you know, she got a OnePlus 7 Pro and she wanted to take it out of the box. And unsurprisingly, she makes great stuff. So I would highly recommend you following her channel and following her run on these different types of tech topics. But she's leading the pack on glowing rectangles. Immediately after her, Steve Lightfield post. Oh, I don't have the. Hold on, I'm gonna refresh this real quick, and it might change my rankings for the week. Nope, it stayed the same. Okay, so Steve stole an idea. He didn't steal it from me. I mean, we've all played with older stuff, but I wanted to do this. A half-decade imaging fight, P30 Pro versus Galaxy K Zoom, and I have this. Almost this exact same video on my list of videos to produce. So I'm kind of mad. I'm kind of mad he beat me to the punch. But yeah, so Samsung went through this period of really crazy experiments. And this is the era of Samsung that I love the most, whereas I'm not super impressed with the Samsung that we have today, where crazy experiments meant, oh, well, we've got to make, $2,000 phones. What gimmick can we come up with to make a $2,000 phone? The K Zoom was a point-and-shoot camera with a phone screen stapled to the back. I mean, it's not really a phone. It's got the full old-school point-and-shoot camera telescoping zoom lens that pops out of the camera body. And for their time, they were an incredible solution for people who wanted to carry around a point-and-shoot camera and wanted a smartphone. And then we started really transitioning through phones like Lumia 1020s and higher resolutions. And now we're kind of coming back to an idea of optics moving, but we're doing it in a much smarter and more contained fashion. So when you look at a P30 Pro and it's got a proper zoom, that's being done with periscoping elements internally in the phone, and it doesn't have a lens that sticks out. But Steve did a video that you should all go check out, comparing a sort of a camera fight between what we used to have and what we have today. And I don't think the results will surprise you, but it's a fun look back at what we used to have to do to try and get similar capabilities for these devices. And that kind of stuff just makes me happy. I've got a whole shelf full of old phones that I would like to spend more time with and more time going back and like, oh, this was such a good idea. I wish we still did this today. And, oh, this phone has a leather back. How novel. And it's not made out of glass. It would be nice if not all of our phones were made out of glass. From Adil, Bernie Burns from Rooster Teeth has once said that whatever video idea you have, someone else would probably have the same idea and probably has made it. Oh, for me, the joke is always, as soon as I say an idea for a video out loud, someone will make that video within the week. So I've purposely put out, come on, do this. I want to see someone else make this video so that I don't have to. That's pretty funny. Excuse me. Okay, so let me get this back. And then of the top 3, I've got one more. Click this back. So from Chris Panton, we've got cheap TPU cases for the Pixel 3a and 3a XL. So if you're rocking one of the baby Pixels, you can rock that out. And then tied for third place, we've got a series of OnePlus videos, and that obviously OnePlus 7 Pro kind of struck it big on the YouTubes. Some dork talking about worth itness. Chris Panton unboxing, and then Nothing But Tech YT88 OnePlus 7 Pro 8 things before buying. And I just want to pick on her for a second. That for the OnePlus 7 Pro, I feel like you should have gone with 7 things. I'm just saying. You know, the OnePlus 7, 8 things. It's just, I feel it was a missed opportunity. So, yes, that is the rundown. Glowing rectangles. Those are the top stories from the last week. Again, you know, it's like we get a handful of new subscribers every week. The numbers are really, really low, but we're seeing growth. And I really feel like there are other ways that we can support producers online. Increasingly, if you want to do cool work online, I don't feel it's in your best interest to just be popular on one platform. Like if you're killing it on Facebook, that's not a recipe for a career. If you're just super awesome on YouTube, when YouTube changes things up on you or you want to take a break, you can never have a vacation. You can never walk away. Increasingly, I feel like you want to diversify, you want to play to the strengths of every online social media network, and you want to find other ways that you can tap into community and build a fan base and join conversations. And then the flip side is, when you find people that you like their commentary, you need to be able to support them. Just watching a video from someone isn't really contributing. I mean, a passive view means very, very little in this day and age. A passive subscription means very little in this day and age. And you need to find those opportunities where if you really like someone's work, get out there, leave comments, share, talk about this content, and find ways that you can bring other people into the fold. And that's what makes the difference between someone who is able to crank out a couple videos and it's a fresh take and it's some exciting new content, and then they disappear for 6 months. And then they're gone. So that's the plea. It's I mean, it hits close to home because this is what I do for work. But increasingly, I want to see more voices in tech. I don't want to just see, well, there are 3 really popular YouTubers and that's all we turn to now. Those are the only videos worth watching because you can see they get millions of views. And like, that's not what we want to do. From Doomer, there's a new streaming platform, which I probably can't mention here, but it's actually really good. Shoot me a comment, Doomer. Like I've been on the hunt. Like I went all in on, there was another one that had like a monetization scheme. I was on Blip way back in the day when I was doing the movie review show. I was trying to walk away from YouTube. People keep bringing up Floatplane. I don't think Floatplane will be a good fit for me, but it looks like an exciting opportunity for someone else who's got a channel that'll fit in well with Floatplane. My play would be to find ways to directly monetize, have a direct relationship with my viewers, and have them be able to weigh in on production. Patreon gives me a platform where I can strategize with patrons. That, to me, is actually one of the biggest perks. It's a direct financial relationship that helps subsidize the costs of doing the camera reviews, which take days to make. But the back end for me is I put out a question on Patreon, and I have people that are genuinely invested in the health of that channel that can weigh in on these different topics and help me out. But that's, again, that's the long-term plan, is to find some way that everyone can find some kind of audience, and we want to diversify the conversation. There's not a, this isn't a competition, right? This doesn't work if, well, so-and-so said it was a terrible phone, and everyone's just going to agree with that because he got 10 million views on a video. Like, that's not how this works. That increasingly makes tech more toxic, not better. Anani Name 58. Float plane is definitely an awesome idea, but I believe that it'll be successful, but it'll take them quite some time. And that's another thing too, is I don't believe any of these competitors can last against YouTube. You come out with a new video streaming service and then, oh, well, I used it for a week and then I still had to watch all of my favorite producers on YouTube. That's kind of why I want to look at a direct video stream download, and why archive.org, to me, makes the most sense for, I can put it out there. I have to use my own social media to promote my own videos. YouTube helps me very little with search and discovery. SEO on that, because I'm not constantly just making a video every day with the most popular SEO tags, YouTube doesn't show any value for my production style. So if I have to use my own social media to alert people that I have a new video out for people who already follow me, as long as I can subsidize the costs of these videos, I can go anywhere now. And that's what I want to find. That's what I want to finalize. John O'Shea with a super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you for contributing. That's awesome. And thank you for helping to support production on this channel. Let's get this out here. Okay. So that was the plug. Our glowing rectangles. Short story, incredibly long. Support your favorite YouTube producers. Support the channels that you feel deserve more attention, not just on Reddit. You go to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. You can submit, leave comments, join conversations, upvote. Don't be stingy with your upvotes. But outside of that, just the whole philosophy of that, share, comment, participate. Be an active viewer, not a passive consumer. And I feel you will be rewarded for that effort. You will be rewarded with higher quality content from new voices, from exciting voices, younger voices, older voices, a more diverse community of different faces. And that helps us as a tech community grow. We put all our eggs into 3 baskets. We get terrible commentary, the way it's always been. From Anani Name 58. I just noticed that I'm not subscribed to you on YouTube. We'll go fix that. All right, I've stalled long enough. Everyone say hey to Andrew Wallace. I was just going to lead off with Huawei news, but dude owns a P20, and now he's freaking out because we've got some breaking news to talk about as it pertains to Huawei, to Android, and to Google and trade embargoes and President Trump. Everyone say, hey, Fat Produce. We waited long enough. We can finally talk about this. Excuse me. Okay. So, from Kyle Ruggles, gives Andrew a hug. Man, this is a crazy bit of news. So I kind of feel like those of you who have been watching this podcast for a while, and those of you who have been hip to the tech community, I don't feel like anything here is terribly surprising, the state of foreign relations that our current leadership here in the United States leans towards. But that still doesn't mean that we can't be horrifically disappointed at how this trade war at the top of 2 massive global economies is being fought. Because it's kind of like those awful Alien versus Predator trailers from way back in the day. Whoever wins, we all lose, right? We're gonna spend a lot of time trying to wreck economies, and I am not super confident in USA leadership right now to fight a 4-dimensional chess match and really weigh out the long-term ramifications of trade war against the Chinese government. It's not to say that I want China to win. I want us to not be fighting like this unless we see really good evidence that we should be enacting the similar penalties that we hit ZTE with following investigations into dealing technology products to countries that are on the don't deal technology products list. So let's get into the actual topics. The story that I caught, the article that I caught started off as an exclusive from Reuters. And let me click this on. I'm going to take another drink of water here because I'm already a little dry. Oh, excuse me. So this is from the article that I caught first. Google suspends some business with Huawei after Trump blacklist. And this is from the source written up by Angela Moon. Alphabet Inc.'s Google has suspended business with Huawei that requires the transfer of hardware, software, and technical services except those publicly available via open source licensing. A source familiar with the matter told Reuters on Sunday, in a blow to the Chinese technology company that the U.S. government has sought to blacklist around the world. Holders of current Huawei smartphones with Google apps, however, will continue to be able to use and download app updates provided by Google, a Google spokesperson said, confirming earlier reports by Reuters. We are complying with the order and reviewing the implications, the Google spokesperson said. For users of our services, Google Play and the security protections from Google Play Protect will continue to function on existing Huawei devices. Let me skip down a little bit further. Let's see. Right here. The Trump administration on Thursday added Huawei Technologies Company Limited to a trade blacklist, immediately enacting restrictions that will make it extremely difficult for the company to do business with U.S. counterparts. On Friday, the U.S. Commerce Department said it was considering scaling back restrictions on Huawei to prevent the interruption of existing network operations and equipment. It was not immediately clear on Sunday whether Huawei's access to mobile software would be affected. The extent to which Huawei will be hurt by the U.S. government's blacklist is not yet known as its global supply chain assesses the impact. Chip experts have questioned Huawei's ability to continue to operate without help from the United States. So let me get this out of the way here. Okay. So immediately, we're seeing those impacts of, in a similar fashion to what happened with ZTE. Following this announcement, we also got confirmation that other United States corporations, Intel, Broadcom, and Qualcomm, were also joining suit. So this is a pretty clear and a very aggressive move against Huawei consumer products. And someone, please, I was trying to look up where this might stand. I feel like there hasn't been any additional news on the investigation into Huawei licensing, trading, or selling technologies to Iran, which is what was the killer piece of evidence against ZTE. I haven't seen where that has been made clear here in the Huawei case, but it seems like our Justice Department and our the executive branch of our government are making that play. They do not want Huawei to be able to compete on 5G, and they're taking a punitive action against Huawei consumer products to try and make an end run around Huawei as a corporation. And so now they won't be able to license different types of radios, different types of chipsets. And while Huawei has proven to be pretty formidable on things like ARM processors, it would take a while before they'd be able to make everything else that they license from American companies. Oh, and hey, Viper's in the live chat, dropping some fire. What's up, Viper? It seems increasingly unlikely that the near-term outlook for Huawei will support new devices coming out. I know Huawei was sort of just making fun of Apple over 5G radios, and now it looks like they might not have access to key 5G technologies coming out of Qualcomm, so that's going to be pretty rough. Likely going to impact things like the Mate X, their folding phone coming out. Although we do have confirmation that the Honor 20 should be released. I mean, I think the releases this week should be released without any other issues. So it looks like this technology's ban moving forward is for future products. Anything that was like eminently released in the pipeline now and is currently out for consumers should be fine. I worry about this. If this were a clearer issue of Huawei corporate shenanigans like we had with ZTE, the thing about ZTE, they got caught red-handed. They were given penalties. They didn't comply with those penalties, and then an executive went to jail, and that's when we had the hardcore ZTE ban. Huawei doesn't feel like that. We haven't seen the conclusion of the evidence to support the assertion that Huawei was benefiting from trading technologies to companies to countries on blacklists. We didn't see Huawei go through an initial penalty phase to assess the damages of doing business with companies on countries on a blacklist. And then that, to me, would be the appropriate let's sever ties with Huawei and really serve them the poison pill destructive punishment. So it still does feel just somewhat punitive from our government's perspective that they're going to be tagging Huawei for something where we haven't gone through the full chain. We haven't gone through the full examination, the full Justice Department scenario, and that stuff needs to be made public so that we can also assess what the risks and what the potential dangers were of all of this. From Doomer, I agree with Google cutting ties, but other companies cutting ties with them is a bit far in my opinion, but that could mean better competition in some aspects when it comes to lower-end devices, like there's Unisoc SoCs and, of course, MediaTek. And then also they've been preparing their own OS for years. So Doomer, the problem with putting them on a blacklist is it's not up to companies anymore whether or not they want to do business. For Intel, for Qualcomm, for Broadcom, for these mega corporations to be continuing to operate within the legal bounds of a United States corporation, they have to pull the plug. It's not, oh, well, now Qualcomm's just jumping on a bandwagon because it's popular. It's they are compelled to honor a blacklist like this coming from our Justice Department and coming from our executive branch. So it's not just you don't really have a choice. And that's what was so destructive to ZTE. They had access to nothing. And, ZTE, they don't even make their own chipsets. So what does this mean for Huawei in the short term? From what I've seen in looking at market analysts, that Huawei has actually been stockpiling components for up to, I think, a 3-month run on their current consumer offerings. They could operate for up to 3 months with minimal impact on their current supply chains, but pulling the plug on future products that are utilizing Google services means that they've got to come up with some other solutions. Obviously, I would be really surprised if Huawei didn't have an AOSP solution ready to go. AOSP is the Android open source project, and it's freely worldwide available. Anyone can go and grab Android AOSP and make something with it. In fact, it would be kind of like when you look at like an Amazon tablet. The core of what the tablet is running is a flavor of Android, but Amazon has made their own infrastructure for their own products that runs on top of that AOSP kernel, that AOSP operating system. So I would be shocked if Huawei didn't have something ready to go. The problem comes from all of the supporting software pieces and infrastructure and apps and services that comes with being a Google licensee in good faith. So, and from Shiril, AOSP is the base of many of the ROMs on XDA. Again, getting an operating system isn't the problem. It's all of the infrastructure, support, maintenance, and additional services and software. That's what's killer. That's one of the reasons why Google was tagged in the EU for their non-compete, was because Google was making it impossible for someone to fork Android. And so, you can have all this stuff for free. But if you ever decide that you want to make your own flavor of an Android phone, well, then no, now you're off the reservation. And now this stuff is going to be way more expensive. And that to me, I felt like was an appropriate punishment. Was an appropriate tag for Google, even though the punishment was like, it cost Google 3 days of revenue. From Vladimir 419, without apps, there is no way to survive in the mobile world. And that's from Google, from the Google-Huawei relationship. That's what really hurts Huawei now, is can they exist worldwide as the global number 2 consumer gadget manufacturer without access to some of the core services that outside of China, consumers have kind of come to expect. Like in China, this probably doesn't affect them much at all in terms of software. None of those services work in China. Your Google services don't make it beyond the firewall there. But in Europe, man, that's going to hurt. In the United States, we're just never going to get it. We're never going to get those phones. We haven't been getting Huawei phones proper. The aborted carrier relationship and the launch of the Mate 10 Pro shows us that that's going to be really rough. So you can't really build a good consumer strategy off of, well, here's a really strict AOSP phone, and here are some third-party app stores, and you can sideload your apps, and you can kind of use different services to fill in all of the gaps of all of the Google services, sort of. Like it just doesn't work that way when you're looking at consumer shopping phones. And that this is likely going to have cascading effects from companies that I keep saying companies when I mean to say countries. This is going to have a cascading effect for all the other countries that do business with the United States, who are going to be very conservative in their approach to operating with Huawei. We've already seen sort of voiced support, not direct, like no action has been taken, but voiced support from the German government. There's going to be a re-examination of Huawei operating in the EU and in the UK. This gets ugly because it's not just USA versus China. As soon as there's a showdown at this level, at this stage, other countries then have to draw lines, and you draw a line in the sand, and other countries have to pick what side of the line they're going to be on. So this is going to get pretty tough. There are a couple other stories here coming out. Bloomberg has a really good write-up on the additional fallout. Most of the stories obviously focusing on Google versus Huawei. Google is adhering to this blacklist. They have to pull their technologies and pull their services from Huawei. But Bloomberg is confirming, this was written up by Ian King, Mark Bergen, and Ben Brody. And I'll have links to all of these stories in the show notes after the podcast wraps up. But the impact of the Trump administration's threats to choke Huawei technologies reverberates across the globe supply chain on Monday, hitting some of the biggest component makers. Intel, Qualcomm, Xilinx, I don't know how to pronounce that, Broadcom, have told their employees they will not supply Huawei until further notice, according to people familiar with their actions. Alphabet's Google cut off the supply of hardware and some of the software services to the Chinese mobile phone equipment giant. Another person familiar said, asking not to be identified, discussing private matters. Trump administration on Friday blacklisted Huawei, which it accuses of aiding Beijing in espionage, and threatened to cut it off from the U.S. software and semiconductors it needs to make its products. The ban, which had been anticipated, hamstrings the world's largest provider of networking gear and the number 2 smartphone vendor. Blocking the sale to Huawei of critical components could also disrupt the business of American chip giants like Micron and retard the rollout of critical 5G wireless networks worldwide, including China. That in turn could hurt U.S. companies that are increasingly reliant on the world's second largest economy for growth. So let's see. Good thing about Bloomberg is they love to talk about stocks. Later in the article, Intel gets less than 1% of its revenue from Huawei. They fell 2% in trading in New York Monday as the market opened. Qualcomm gets about 2.6% of its revenue from Huawei. They fell 4.8%. Lumentum Holdings cut its fourth quarter forecast, said it has discontinued all shipments to Huawei, which accounts for about 18% of its sales, and those shares fell 3.7%. Broadcom, with 5.3% revenue exposure to Huawei, was down 4.4%. So this is going to be a rough game. If the claim is that we can't do business with Huawei because they feed information to Beijing, I feel by now we should have had some other resource confirming that. I don't think it would be tremendously difficult to find a concerted effort to compromise the security of Huawei devices to prove or verify the assertion that this is a direct pipeline to Beijing, as it's being argued by the Trump administration. Whenever we've had some security issues or networking threats on other manufacturers, when a manufacturer puts up public, personally identifiable information and it ends up on a server in plain text in China, the tech community has unraveled that pretty quick. They've been able to confirm it or verify it very, very quickly. And I still have not seen the evidence to support this is how the Chinese government has directly compromised the consumer use of Huawei products. That does not mean that I am saying it has not happened. I'm just saying before we get into a massive trade war with China, which is going to have some substantial impacts on a number of markets, both tech and private sector, and I feel very confident that China is going to retaliate with a number of other exports and how we do business with other countries around the world. It would be nice to have more than just the Trump administration's assertion that China's spying on us because Beijing. That does not instill me with a lot of confidence, especially with how inept this administration has been. The bigger concern, and where we talk about network infrastructure, because it was very similar to why I really did agree ZTE needed to be affected for their business practices, was doing business with other countries on blacklists. So when ZTE was selling networking equipment to Iran, and then ZTE executives ignored the penalties that were coming to ZTE, then this type of nuke strategy made sense. And I do believe there is a Huawei executive still being detained over potential trade and business practices that look very similar to ZTE. And to me, that's a much stronger argument for why we should be critical of Huawei's business practices. I mean, whether or not we want to get into intellectual property and trade and the story that broke about some Huawei executives trying to make off with the intellectual property of, I believe there were a company that was making a diamond display. That was, a crazy story of like back channel negotiations and intellectual property theft. And like, there's plenty that we should be examining the business practices of these mega corporations as they operate globally. I would want to see some evidence, though, as I feel like we're going to get dragged into a fight that we might not have had to have waged this way. From Marvin C., China spies on us, yet Facebook continues on strong, selling your data to third-party entities who want to spy on us all. From Gabaletta, it's rather unfortunate, really. The U.S. is on an all-out war against a major telecommunications company. This doesn't encourage competition when you only allow certain companies to compete in this space. And this is like where my conservative flaring really gets triggered. I want to see a playing field where someone could maybe even potentially walk into this space with new technologies and disrupt the market. And we're not going to be able to do that if we've got a government action which highlights winners or losers. It's we have fairly inept tech leadership across the globe. I have very little confidence in most of our elected officials to look at the nuance of these types of topics, especially because they're nerdy, right? These geeky topics, and we get into telecommunications infrastructure, 5G rollout, fiber to home, net neutrality, community broadband, how we pay for this infrastructure, how we profit off of this infrastructure. It's not liberal or conservative. I think in the United States, the Democrats have at least paid lip service better to these tech issues. But when it comes to action, it doesn't motivate voters as much because it's the geeky, nerdy stuff. So they don't really invest much time or much effort into crafting well thought out policy, nuanced policy. And then we end up with this garbage when we get into trade wars. I'm very disappointed across the board. I'm more disappointed in Republicans because Republicans make that argument about fair, free markets and then whine the loudest when something interrupts the ability for winners in the tech space to continue profiting. But if the Democrats were more effective, then we would have some good counterbalance to all of this nonsense. So, who has it? Paul Enriquez Gehring. China owns our manufacturing lines, really. I mean, what device is made in America anymore, or at least isn't made in China? Some Samsung phones are made in Taiwan, but even they have a lot made there. And I think we're going to actually see, because LG is moving from Korea to Vietnam also. So I think we're going to see companies trying to. But don't forget, Foxconn was looking at trying to build what Foxconn is going to be building. They've built in Brazil. they were given millions, if not billions. Was it? Let's just say millions. Someone correct me if it was billions in Wisconsin to try and revive manufacturing there. And they took all of those sweetheart tax breaks and that publicly funded cash, and then they didn't deliver on what they were going to make in Wisconsin. Oh, this is a good point. Vladimir 419, Andrew Yang talks a lot about this kind of stuff. I think he's a very rare individual who is trying to make these conversations more prevalent and more accessible. And from Total Tech, I don't want to hear another Republican talk about free market ever again. From Adil, every time the Trump administration is asked to provide evidence, they always fall back to trust us, we have it, if not quickly accusing the questioner of being a spy or at the very least an idiot. From Max Johnson, if an iPhone were made in the United States, it would be $3,000. From Marcos Reis, politicians probably only know to turn on and off phones, ask them about 4G or 5G frequencies, and they will talk about God. And from @Fat Produce, any suggestions on alternatives to Huawei? So I know our buddy, Fat Produce, Andrew Wallace, he's got a Huawei P20. I think one of the major takeaways, and this was confirmed, let me pull up the XDA. They're sort of cataloging the news as it's been coming in. Let me pull this up here. This is from Tushar Mehta. Google has reportedly revoked Huawei's Android license. Update, Huawei responds, no change in Honor 20 launch. So I do want to scroll down here. This is coming from the @Android Twitter account. For Huawei users, questions regarding our steps to comply with the recent U.S. government actions, we assure you while we are complying with all U.S. government requirements, services like Google Play and security from Google Play Protect will keep functioning on your existing Huawei device. Then Huawei delivered an official response. This is from WinFuture. I actually saw this on WinFuture, but that whole site's in German, so I'm going to follow up with the XDA reporting here. Huawei has made substantial contributions to the development and growth of Android around the world. As one of Android's key global partners, we have worked closely with their open source platform to develop an ecosystem has benefited both users and the industry. Huawei will continue to provide security updates and after-sales services to all existing Huawei and Honor smartphone and tablet products, covering those have been sold or still in stock globally. We want to continue to build a safe and sustainable ecosystem software in order to provide the best experience for all users globally. And then we do have confirmation that the launch of the Honor 20 is unaffected in London. So we'll see what the Honor 20 has to offer. But it does seem that out of the Huawei Global Corporation, that Honor and Huawei smartphone divisions are going to be affected by this ban. So what would we recommend? You know, you've got someone right in front of you like Andrew Wallace, who loves what the P20 brings to the table, but he's concerned about sort of the longevity of the phone, the support for the phone. I've been concerned about Huawei regional support because my Mate 10 Pro, after they never were able to really properly sell it in the United States, has gotten 0 updates, and I can't find out how to sideload an update on my Mate 10 Pro. And they're really finicky about their regional support. So if you're using the phone out of its sort of region home, it won't get updates because reasons. And they refuse to unlock bootloaders, and they've taken steps towards really controlling the experience, but controlling it at a very granular and regional level. Not just, we'll update this specific model number. It's, we'll update this specific model number, and only if it's in a home region that we have verified for an update, which to me feels a little punitive. From Vladimir 419, I'm curious to see what happens when the US finds out that OnePlus is owned by Oppo, but Oppo and BBK do not sell networking equipment. They don't have a huge infrastructure and network like Huawei does. So they aren't danger. From Total Tech with a super chat, just change the region to Puerto Rico, Juan. That's a good point. I actually haven't tried sort of locking the phone up and seeing if I can force a region change. Anyway, I'll give it a shot. But again, we're talking Mate 10 Pro. I do have the Mate 20 too. Let me check that out. Anyway, so what would we maybe consider as another solution? Like if at Fat Produce, he likes getting a year-old flagship. You know, that's kind of his bag, and we need to see what other solutions he might have access to. He might recommend an LG phone if he wants some similar camera features, even if he loses out on just the hardcore baller low light performance of a P20. I would also say I don't believe something like a OnePlus would be a good fit because he really values that camera. I'd probably not recommend something like a Samsung, just because of their recent moves towards disabling camera features on the Galaxy S10 and on the Note 9. I don't know. What do you folks think? If you were trying to find some solutions for people, I know obviously a lot of people are going to say Zenfone 6, Snapdragon 855, $500, which is a potential solution. I am just very curious to see if ASUS has really sorted out their software. Not just like they kind of got rid of the most egregious aspects of their Zen skin, but everything. It's the same thing. Like you can get a Nokia and it has it's an Android One device, so the OS is fine, but all of the supporting software for things like the camera and radio management and all those other issues hasn't really kept up with just the the operating system and security patch updates. So I don't know, just kind of curious. What y'all think? Renato Laporte saying maybe a Nokia 9, Santiago, maybe an LG G7. Again, a number of people saying Zenfone 6, Zenfone 6, get Gcam on a Zenfone 6. Vladimir 419, LG is kind of it. God, isn't competition great when all we talk about is Apple and Samsung? So this is what sucks, is we should have more players in this space. If you catch my OnePlus 7 video, I make the analogy that this didn't happen to laptops. It's not like there's only Samsung or Apple laptops. We acknowledge that there is a huge commodity consumer base who need a variety of different solutions. And that's where you can still do exciting things, even though laptops and desktop PCs are not the exciting bleeding edge of computing. You can end up with Microsoft shaking things up with the Surface, or Lenovo giving you flippy, foldy, bendy screens, or Asus giving you just the sexiest baller hardcore gaming hardware. Dell offering you a very straightforward, corporate grade computing experience. I would still love to have like a modern day ThinkPad. I just have those fond memories of classic old school IBMs. We have this huge spread of options, sizes, features, capabilities, support, focus for things like laptops. And increasingly, we're bifurcating the smartphone market into like 3 players. And that's very disappointing. And it's kind of scary because it means that the life of a smartphone is going to be increasingly hampered by a manufactured need to upgrade as fast as possible. So I don't know. It's kind of a bummer. Matt Tyler with a super chat. Thank you for being this honest, amazing creator. Just trying to keep it honest, but if you've been following this podcast, then you have at least had some appreciation for these stories take a little while to talk out, and we need to have better competition, and we need to be able to shake things up in how we talk about these products outside of just, did YouTube say that this was the most popular video about a product or a service? Because that doesn't help us. LGH Dotma, maybe consider a Sony. I know Andrew liked his XZ1 Compact, and maybe an Xperia 1 might be in his future after it's a year old and he can get it cheaper on Swappa. And from Fat Produce, I hate how Sony doesn't support RAW. But again, you wait for the Xperia 1 to come out, and then a year after that, you could maybe have good RAW support. I don't know, maybe. So my advice would be, depending on what you like about your P20, okay, if you still have access to another phone, flip the Huawei before the pricing shenanigans really crater out, because I feel this will have a negative impact on resale pricing as people are afeared of the Huawei name. Fall back on some kind of just daily driver phone that gets you through. And if for Andrew specifically, if he still has his Xperia XZ1 Compact, that's a fine daily driver phone. That's a great little Mighty Mouse phone. It's still lickety split, quick as anything. Then see if you can hold out for a few more phones playing into the space with true half-inch camera sensors. I do not believe that anything hitting the market is truly going to unseat Huawei's investment in 2/3 inch camera sensors, the thing that you find on the P20 Pro, the Mate 20, the P30. Nothing's going to touch that hardware for super extreme low light photography. But the half-inch sensor will be a nice improvement. And you're going to see it's the Sony that has the 48 megapixel pixel count. It's what we're going to talk about on the OnePlus 7 Pro here in just a second. And the extra little bit of sensor real estate over a Samsung or an LG does help with depth of field. It does help with low light photography. Most of these phones have had issues with the software, what we're going to talk about with the OnePlus 7 Pro. But when a few more of these start making it out there, and you can back that up with some third-party camera apps, maybe a Google camera port if you're worried about some of the auto mode performance, and you can get to that RAW file, which is an insane RAW file to work off of, a 48 megapixel RAW file, then I feel like the sting of that is going to be lessened. We're going to be looking at phones. OnePlus 7s, the Asus, the Zenfone 6 is going to be using that sensor. You can get it on an Honor, but I would recommend probably avoiding the Honor if your concern is the same for the P20. And then from there, I think you'll have your bases covered. You'll have a more recent device, probably rocking a Snapdragon 845 or an 855. You'll have a larger camera sensor to lessen the sting of losing the P20. And hopefully you'll be on a much better update and support path with any of these companies that might offer you better support than what you might get from LG or Samsung. But that also means you got to sit it out for a little bit because we got to see how these phones actually perform when they make it into our hands. So, Aditya Anil, half-inch should be smaller than 2/3, right? Isn't bigger better when it comes to sensors and pixels? So, that is correct. On the half-inch sensor, the 48 megapixel image sensor that you have in the OnePlus 7 Pro, that is smaller than the image sensor that's found in the P20. But the reason why I'm recommending that sensor is because it's bigger than what you get in a Galaxy or in an LG. I believe the Galaxy uses a 1/2.5 inch sensor and the LG uses a 1/2.6 sensor. So the individual photo sites for those sensors are around 1.4 micron. When you take the 48 megapixel half-inch sensor and you pixel bin, so you smash all of that data down into a 12 megapixel image. Again, it's a 4-to-1 image compression. You end up effectively with a 1.6 micron image sensor on a larger surface area. So that's why I'm saying it's going to lessen the sting. It won't unseat a P20, a P20 Pro, a Mate 20 Pro, or a P30, but it will be a nicer improvement over just going with the same image sensors we've had on Samsung's or LG's since the Galaxy S7. Again, Samsung's been coasting on their camera hardware, adding a couple lenses, but the core photography experience really hasn't improved much from the Galaxy S7. And it improved a little bit on LG because LG went from 1/3 inch sensors to this 1/2.6. 1/2.6 to a true half-inch is a nice benefit. It's a subtle but noticeable nuanced improvement to smartphone photography. It's just not as exciting as a 2/3 inch sensor. That was getting deep. And again, for anyone who's like listening to the audio version of this podcast after the fact, I apologize. Like, I spend so much time on these deep dives. All right. From Doomer, what about Xiaomi flagships? Xiaomis are so great. You just don't have them here in the United States. And I know Andrew probably isn't afeared of importing. But again, I think a part of this is also still looking for good support, proper support. And there is still some infrastructure in Huawei and Honor in the United States. We have zero Xiaomi in the United States, which is just a bummer. Abraham Artemis, Samsung be like #colors like unicorn. KGB 0075, but you digress. All right, let's wrap up with something fun. Every time I bring up this phone, people flip out and be like, "Oh, it's totally not even worth talking about because now Asus. I'm reaching out to Asus, and I'm hoping I can go hands-on with the Zenfone 6, but I don't have any relationship with them for reals. Like, I've done some work with them at Newegg, but they don't talk to me at all about phones. And I just got the OnePlus 7 Pro, and all I've been able to do is like my first impressions video on it. And this is such a nice phone, and I really like this phone. I'm going to turn down the screen brightness on this phone for when I hold it up to the camera. Or turn down the screen brightness on this phone for when I hold it up to the camera. I'm going to turn up the screen brightness just a little bit. And did I just see? Oh, I'm getting notifications on optimizing battery life and stuff. But yeah, so OnePlus 7 Pro, it's big and it's a little bit more expensive. And I feel it's been perfectly justified. I feel like if your response to a OnePlus 7 Pro is Asus Zenfone 6, You're not comparing oranges to oranges. Those are two manufacturers that are now making very different arguments about the product tier that they're approaching. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping ASUS is able to shake up their market and build some brand awareness. Excuse me, because I haven't used. I'm trying to think back. I haven't used a Zen phone for any length of time since the Zenfone 4. The Zenfone 4 series. I missed ASUS all of last year. Even with the ROG phone, I got to hold it and I've played with it, but not long enough to actually make videos on it or anything. But OnePlus is making a targeted and calculated move upscale for the OnePlus 7, the OnePlus 7 Pro. Also making it super obnoxious that we don't get the OnePlus 7, the regular OnePlus 7 here in the United States. I feel like that's the carryover phone if you want something exciting in that mid-ranger price tier. Like, I want a super nice phone that is half the price of an iPhone. That's the OnePlus 7. And we don't get it here. But the OnePlus 7 Pro is making a different argument. So again, anyone who was seriously considering a OnePlus 7 Pro, that is different than just, I want the least expensive pathway to the 48 megapixel camera sensor and the Snapdragon 855. If your main focus is, I want that Sony sensor and I want the 855, but I want it at the cheapest possible price, that's Zenfone. And that's exciting because we haven't had sort of a market shakeup like that. And then the fight gets real visceral between a Pixel 3a at $400 and a Zenfone at $500. Like, that fight is exactly the kind of competition I want to see more of in the market as entry level morphs into mid-range. It's where, like, the Xperia 10, the Nokia 7.1, a Moto G7, those phones were hitting $400 price points here in the United States for Snapdragon 636s, right? We can do better than that. And a Pixel 3a with a 670 at $400 is super exciting. And then if you want the extra horsepower, that extra $100 is well served for phone horsepower, but maybe at the expense of automatic camera quality, right? We've got to properly balance all that. But the OnePlus 7 Pro is not having that conversation. And I feel like what we get out of the OnePlus 7 Pro totally explains the additional $100 price premium that we would have faced. You know, we expect OnePlus is going to jack up the price $20 to $30 with every model of the phone that they put out. Well, here, instead of the $20 price bump, we had sort of a $120 price bump over the OnePlus 6, or I guess over the OnePlus 6T. And I feel it's justified. But now they're making a different conversation over what do you expect out of a phone and what do you care about in a phone. And when you add luxury features, you are going to turn off a bunch of consumers that followed your brand for the budget pricing. But that doesn't mean that you only focus on OnePlus because the OnePlus originally sold for $300. You know, like, move on. Do you still wear your high school Letterman jacket? No, stop doing that. This is different, and prices have all been inflated, and a company can only survive in this market if they can demonstrate an ability to grow profits. Otherwise, this stuff disappears. And I guarantee you that if the Zenfone is successful, the Zenfone 6 is successful in this budget pricing, we will not see them hold to a $500 price tag. A Zenfone 7, Zenfone 8, Zenfone 9 is gonna move upscale, and they're going to charge more so that they can improve their profit margins. Every company does this, and the companies that don't die. They disappear. So, the frustrating thing is, like, a lot of this just got tagged immediately. So when, we got through the OnePlus 7 keynote, YouTube got slaughtered with OnePlus 7 embargo week reviews, first looks, impressions, unboxings. Like, the market just got saturated for OnePlus 7 content, and then immediately following, we got the news on the Zenfone 6, and we saw a flurry of a handful of YouTubers getting their hands on that phone and getting to use that phone too. I'm going to spend like my normal amount of time. Like it might take me a month to finish up all of the videos and what I want to talk about for the Zenfone. I'm still wrapping up Pixel 3a. I'm still wrapping up G8. There's one last video that I need to cut on the G8 now that I finished some of the more deeper examinations. And I want to circle back and eventually get back to the Nokia 9 to sort of have that longer term conversation about software support and improvements for a phone that deserves that much attention. The OnePlus 7 Pro, I think what's frustrating is OnePlus did the same dopey thing with the camera that they did with the OnePlus 6. When I pulled the OnePlus 7 Pro out of the box, I was able to use it for about 3 hours before a notification popped up that I had a 500 megabyte update to install. Any videos that were called reviews on the OnePlus 7 Pro that went out immediately on embargo did not have access to a 500 megabyte update, which included performance updates, security patches, which I don't know that that would have affected the videos, but it's nice to talk about, and camera improvements. The phone that DxO ranked in their scores, which are totally specious. We all know that DxO is a marketing arm of a specific kind of service for improving smartphone cameras. But the phone they used to test was not the same phone that went up on all of those embargo week reviews. So I've seen a number of people complaining like, low light performance is terrible and the nightscape mode doesn't work at all. And I took it out 2 nights ago and you can see those samples. Let me see if I can pull it up on Instagram right now. I'll go back into a screen share for my own photos. Why not? I don't want to turn on notifications. They suck. So I went out and, let me see if I can make this bigger. That's not going to look very good at all. Kind of can't because it's a... All right, this isn't going to look super great, but you can go to Instagram.com/SomeGadgetGuy and check this out. But I took the... Oh, come on. My crop is super tight, so I haven't been able to fix... dang it. I don't know that this is going to work. Let me see if... I hate the way that Instagram does this. Let me see if I scroll down before... Nope, that's not going to work at all. All right, that's... Oh, I guess I can try one. Let me try one thing here because I do want something to illustrate what I. Nah, it's not gonna work. Anyway, go check out my Instagram. It's the top thing right here on Instagram, and it only has like 280 likes because no one cares about this stuff anymore. But I took it out after the update, and Nightscape works great. It works surprisingly well. I would still say that I like the overall effect of a Pixel better, but that's not a deal breaker. Like, I hate that we hinge the smartphone discussion on, well, I am supporting one phone because I think it's going to be more popular. So I will use one metric, one part of a camera app to declare, well, obviously the only good answer is a Pixel. I mean, it's got the fastest auto shutter and you've got night sight. So the Pixel wins against everything else that like this phone might have to offer, right? That's not how smartphones work. These are disgustingly powerful pocket computers that do crazy things and will be horrifically disruptive to the rest of the laptop and desktop community soon, because I want to talk about that in just a bit too. Some of the other things that are a nice perk on this phone. But night sight is a little bit better than nightscape. So it's a little bit better. You should buy a Pixel. That's not how this works. It's not. So, Vladimir 419. Download the Instagram app, and that will work better for what you're trying to do. LOL. So I took it out there. I didn't do anything fancy. I used Nightscape, and you can see pretty clearly when you go to my Instagram, like, It's good. It's really good. I mean, like I have zero issues on just like auto to auto, night mode to night mode. Like OnePlus is doing so much better than they did last year. And again, they're working from much better hardware. So when you reviewed a OnePlus 6 back in the day, and I didn't get it during embargo week then either, that camera was rough. Comparing the OnePlus 6 then to where we are now is night and day different. OnePlus still has a ton of little buggy, gremlin-y things in their camera app that I wish that they would focus on and refine. But the overall performance, I pick up the phone and I hit the shutter and I get a photo, is pretty good. And this is coming from a company that doesn't really prioritize the camera as being one of the key crown jewel features of the phone. From OnePlus, their perspective is we are making the best performing handset that they can. UI performance, gaming performance, just sustained performance, updates, software. They're making that argument, and the camera's pretty good, you know? So I feel like this is carried through on the OnePlus 7 Pro. It's been totally functional. It's not let me down. I'm chasing around a toddler. I'm getting good shots. And there are some gremlin-y, buggy things that piss me off, but it really hasn't held me back. And that's important to me. That's critical. Like, I don't feel like I'm really missing out on much when I move over from another phone. Now, if I want to talk about really pushing a camera to its max, of really driving a camera hard, I'm not talking about, did it take a photo with the pretty colors in auto? No, I'm talking about hardcore manual features and video features and more control over slow motion and stuff like that. I'm not concerned with granular differences in HDR processing between two phones when I don't want to make decisions for what my content looks like, and I want a computer to decide for me what my photo should look like. I don't feel like that's really an exciting debate. Like, I feel like it's pretty much fine with any phone over $300 today. Like, it's fine. So, there are definitely some concerns on the OnePlus 7 Pro camera, but if we're being intellectually honest about who we're trying to talk to, if you're a full auto mode shooter and you rely on no manual modes or no controls or anything, and you don't care about advanced camera settings or features or Bixby vision or night sight scapes, you're going to be fine. This phone is going to handle you fine. And if you care a little bit about improving, I will be very surprised if there's not a working Gcam port in the next couple weeks, if you want that Pixel style approach to how that works. To sit there and say like night sight is the only thing that matters, ignores all of the other issues. I mean, there are a couple little bugs and gremlins on my Pixel 3a, but I don't think that they're deal breakers. It's still an exciting phone to talk about at $400 in the United States. To try and make it sound like, oh, well, the OnePlus 7 Pro is now more expensive, and there was one thing that wasn't very nice. There's one thing that was a little bit of a problem, is totally dishonest. It's totally intellectually dishonest. And from Adil in the live chat, a lot of reviewers are also overlooking the bugs that the Pixel, even stock Android, has in general, like random app crashes or quick charge not working or just NFC. Aditya Anil, I'm in love with the manual mode on the G7. Looking forward to going home post my exams and digging up my Rebel XS. Getting yourself a good interchangeable lens camera. From Satyasrisa Nuna, I have butchered your name. That wide-angle camera is not good. The wide-angle camera on the OnePlus 7 Pro is fine. It feels a little bit more like the wide-angle camera, and again, I'm only a couple days into using it. The wide-angle camera on the OnePlus 7 Pro feels a little bit more like a V20. So I wouldn't consider that a deal breaker, just out of the box in its normal settings, it's a little fisheye effecty for me. I don't like that you get that barrel distortion. They have a plugin that corrects it, but then you do have that sort of, that little bit of extra edge affecting distortion correction, and that comes with a bit more sharpening. But it's a fine wide-angle shooter. I still like my G8 better, and I think Samsung has done some impressive things with their wide-angle shooter. But I would still lean with the G8 because you can use the G8 wide-angle camera for everything, and you can't use the Samsung wide-angle camera for anything but auto mode or 30 frame per second video. So, you know, like, it's fine. Kyle Ruggles, how's the corner sharpness on the wide angle? Terrible. It's a smartphone wide angle camera. They're all terrible. From Ryan Lowe, what do you think of the manual mode in the camera? The OnePlus manual modes have been fine. The problem is that it's not flexible. And so I'm hoping this will be addressed with software. But unlike the G8, where you have access to the standard and wide, you do not get manual controls or RAW support for the zoom or the wide angle in the manual mode on the 7 Pro. So that's a bummer. But again, I would not be recommending the OnePlus 7 Pro to anyone who is making a tough argument about a production grade setup. I feel like this will do me fine for a lot of my vloggy conversation, talking to camera in the moment, walking around stuff. But if I really wanted to execute good video, LG is the top game. Not because their optics are the best, not because they use the bestest sensors. It's because they've got the best overall package for camera, video, and audio control. So if you're saying you really care about those things, you wouldn't be shopping a Samsung. You would not be shopping a OnePlus. You would not be shopping any of the budget phones. You'd be shopping devices that have access to apps that really deliver those granular controls. And right now that's LG. And you can kind of pull some of that off with third-party apps on an iPhone. But the iPhone XS has been a little squirrely for full support over all of the camera features there too when I use my manual camera apps on the iPhone. That, if we're being honest about those kinds of features, you say you demand the best camera in a phone, you've got to define the parameters by which you're going to judge that camera. And most manufacturers come up short. Samsung's not getting it done. Sony's not getting it done. I'll be curious to see if the One changes that. But the Xperia 10? Nah, forget about that. So, yeah, that's the gig. But that's what happens when you frame a smartphone review on one feature. And you only test that feature to its lowest common denominator. And that's why I have issues with DxO. I don't have issues with DxO because I think they're actively manipulating scores. I have issues with DxO because they test 20% of a phone's capabilities. Full auto. That's it. What? That's not a review. I push the shutter button. Does it have the prettiest colors? Oh no, chromatic aberration. I guess. Well, you know, we were shooting in full audio and video, and sometimes the autofocus would shift. That's not. Why not tap on the screen and lock your flipping focus so that you don't have that problem? Because I know when I'm shooting video of something and I care about that video, I tell the phone where to focus. So this is what I hate, is that we've got this like lowest common denominator expectation of consumers. And instead, what I would like to do is start having conversations with people saying like, hey, if you really care about your photos of your family, look at this other mode. Try this other menu. Look at this other setting. And raising the bar on what people can do, because this is a freakishly powerful computer. And that brings me to the other thing that is going to be critically exciting for me on the OnePlus 7 and on the OnePlus 7 Pro is I feel like these will age well for where smartphone computing is going to go. I do not care about, well, I care a little bit about foldable screens, but I have zero interest in a clumsy square tablet that kind of turns into a ridiculously clumsy and fragile phone. I'm a little bit more interested in a normal phone that folds in half to be a smaller normal phone. But what I'm excited about for what OnePlus has done here, a critical improvement to the streamlined OnePluses that we got in the past, is we know Android is about to get a little bit smarter. Android is about to get better at figuring out display resolution and aspect ratio of a screen. Now, one of the reasons why is because we're expecting more foldable tablet phones. That's dumb. But when you plug your Android into a computer monitor, when you plug it into a dock that hooks it up to a TV, Android Q is going to be offering a DeX or Huawei style desktop mode. That has significant implications for not only the smartphone market, but the tablet market and the laptop market. Let me put this into some kind of perspective for you. I have a Huawei MateBook 13, and it's a capable little MacBook Air or MacBook Pro 13-inch competitor. You know, spec for spec, it competes very well against MacBooks that cost $1,000 more than what you can pick up the MateBook 13 for. And it's got that little gimmicky NVIDIA dedicated graphics chip. When I render 1 minute, no effects, no plugins, no text, nothing. When I render 1 minute of UHD video at a high bit rate on the MateBook 13, it does it, but it does it very slowly. It's often 8 or 10 to 1 in terms of rendering. So for every minute of video that I need to render, it takes about 8 minutes just to reprocess the exact same video. And again, that will get increasingly longer when you add titles, or if you were to add color adjustments, or if you were to edit it in any way. Just 1 block minute of video can take 8 to 10 minutes to render on my MateBook 13. I have a Razer gaming laptop, which I believe has a 7th gen Intel, 6th gen? I can't remember. But it's got a GTX 960 graphics chip in there. Not a great GPU. The GTX 960 was a dog, and I hate NVIDIA for that graphics card. Rendering 1 minute of UHD video on that laptop can take 2 to 3 to 1. So it can take up to 3 minutes to process 1 minute of UHD video at a high bit rate. Matching the bit rate of what I can do in Power Director on Android, the OnePlus 7 Pro can render that exact same video clip in 45 seconds. 1 minute of UHD video will crank out of this phone in 45 seconds. It's 1-to-1 on my LG G8. 1 minute of UHD video pops out at around a 50 megabit per second bit rate in 1 minute. Snapdragon 855s with good software are absolutely crushing a lot of what we use our laptops for, because it's a more streamlined platform, less CPU overhead, less GPU overhead. And this phone, the OnePlus 7 and the OnePlus 7 Pro, are probably going to be some of the first devices to get good Android Q updates. You combine this with a DeX style solution, a Huawei desktop mode. I keep bringing it up, but I got that Nex 2 laptop dock. This is going to be a more powerful laptop with a $300 dock than my gaming laptop is. That's how far we've come. So that's why I'm really excited about the OnePlus 7 Pro moving upscale, because when I drive this phone hard, like Samsung, like my Razer, there is thermal hardware in this phone to help get heat away from that chipset. On the Razer, that is a nice perk. The back of the phone feels a little warm to the touch, but it feels a little warm to the touch because it's getting heat out more efficiently. Combine that with a $300 laptop dock, and I'm still less than half the price of a Galaxy Fold for a portable computer which crushes, like destroys my MateBook 13. All we need is a little bit more software to back it up. But I use Microsoft Office, and the mobile apps are pretty good. I use Power Director, and it's not bad. I can do 3 tracks of video, I think 6 tracks of audio, transitions, green screen. I can pan and zoom. I can crop. I can do color correction. I can edit videos on a mobile app. And I also have some pretty good audio recording hardware too. This is a computer. This is a computer that is about to destroy my current preferred travel laptop. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be real good. So that's why it's critical. It can't just be, oh, it's got an 855. Like, I need to know that it's got good thermal processing, that I do get true HDMI output. I like that we've got UFS 3, so that hopefully this will age well over time with fast storage that larger apps and services will be able to take advantage of, that I can multitask more efficiently when I'm plugging it into a laptop dock and I can use it as a proper computer. All of those things add up to justify a $100 price tag. And if we're not doing those kinds of things, then why are we even talking about $600 plus phones? There's 0 point. There's no point to talk about a $1,000 Galaxy, an $800 LG, $1,000 iPhone. We've been overbuying for a couple years now. I would say since the Snapdragon 835, we've been buying way more horsepower than we need without real tangible perks. And we're about to get some really cool perks, some really great benefits. That's why I'm excited about a phone like the OnePlus 7, is because I feel like the OnePlus 7 is going to be ahead of the curve. I feel like we're going to get this stuff first on a OnePlus 7 on a device that's properly built to really drive that experience. So I'm hoping it pans out. I usually would never recommend someone buy a phone on hope. Android Q could come with a bunch of problems or bugs or issues, or maybe desktop mode gets axed at the last minute. It would make me really sad. But that's the hope. I really do believe as soon as we get a generic desktop mode interface properly supported from Google in Android, there's going to be way less reason to buy a laptop. This will fulfill, for most consumers out there doing fairly moderately aggressive work on their laptops, this will be a huge shot at mobile computing in general. That's just my gig. Vladimir 419, what you are saying is breaking my brain. Abraham Artemis, hashtag, what are you doing with your smartphones? Marcel Clapper, OnePlus 7 Pro got UFS 3.0, makes it fast. Kyle Ruggles, would be awesome if we could use our smartphones to offset exporting. Would be nice to connect it to USB and offload it to the phone to export. Again, I mean, like, if you're editing on the fly and you're shooting from the phone, like, it's so nice. Like, I shoot a piece of video and I drop it immediately into the timeline and I'm editing the video, like, instantly. Like, there's no transfer. It's awesome. Total Tech, I'm doing all my editing on mobile. The KineMaster with the max bitrate. It's good. KineMaster is very good. I'm familiar with Power Director, so I still lean towards Power Director, but the most recent updates for Power Director included keyframing, pan and crop, stabilizer. So you have a built-in image stabilization plugin in Power Director. They've always had green screening, and now they properly support a high bit rate, 60 frame per second UHD render, which is awesome. From Matt Tyler, and you can make calls on it. DOA salesman, gaming laptop versus 2019 phones is a good comparison, because what you'll get out of a gaming laptop is a much more robust, versatile, flexible platform for all different types of computing. And obviously, a gaming laptop is going to have much better thermal management for that x86 chip. The fear I have with pushing everything aggressively over to phones is heat, thermals, destroying your battery, cooking your internals. I really want to see a future laptop dock with active cooling. So you can kind of like slot your phone into a slot, slot your phone into a slot your phone into a cradle that then cools the device while you use it. Like maybe it's a fan on the front of the keyboard so that you use the phone like a trackpad or something like that. I think that's one small step, is just make sure that you're not destroying your phone with heat. But that's also why in the interim, having the option to buy a phone with not active, but thermal cooling hardware is kind of critical. Let's see. From Token Tech, I would like to see that tested in more detail. If what you're saying is true in a wide range of situations, it will definitely be a game changer. It has been. This has been a game changer. I did my first production video on Pocket Now, rendering off of the Huawei P10 Pro. And it was great. Like I've been cutting video mobile since then, and no one noticed. Like there was no difference there. And I was able to shoot, edit, I recorded all of the voiceover, render, upload, everything from the phone. This has been capable for a while. And this is why I say we have been overbuying processing power since the Snapdragon 835. Because so few people are really tapping into what these devices are truly capable of. And from Gabaletta, this is why, even though I don't like them, the new Pixel 3a is an exciting conversation to come, because there's something to be said for just streamlining. I was talking to my mom. My mom is finally going to retire her Galaxy S5, and we went over almost every phone in my collection, and I offered her up, we can get you a Pixel, or I also have a spare OnePlus 6T. And she kind of used both phones, and she liked the size of the Pixel better. She was like, I'd like to take this for a spin. So she took the 6T and she took that home. So we'll have to see. I think she's gonna like it, especially after her S5. I think she'll appreciate, like, oh, this is snappier, and it is a better camera than her S5. And the fingerprint sensor in the display I don't love, but it's gonna work better than the fingerprint sensor on a Galaxy S5. So I'll report back when she's had some time to spend with it. But yeah, she was excited to break in a new phone. From Adil, for most low-income families in America are already using smartphones as their main computer and very likely the only thing that they own. Absolutely accurate. Now imagine you've got a kid, maybe they're on some like Snapdragon 670, 660, something like that. The BlackBerry, obviously it's not a budget, so I'm not recommending the BlackBerry, but I'm just saying this has a 660 and it has HDMI out. So this is your kid's computer. And then they get home from school and they just plop it into a charger and it fires up a desktop grade monitor. You spent so much less on making sure that they're still connected, that they can still get their homework done, that they can still participate in class, they can still access and research and communicate and everything. You didn't have to buy them a Chromebook and a phone. You didn't have to buy them an iPad and a phone. You didn't have to buy them a desktop and a phone. Just done. The phone. It's good. Do it. I really want this to happen. I think this is super critical. From Total Tech. Oh, wait, Power Director does green screen now? May have to go back to it. Just need that 4K 60 frame per second export. I said. It's got it. High bit rate, 4K 60 frame per second rendering. It's been doing that for a while. It did that, actually. The OnePlus 6, I believe, was the first phone that I saw that activate on Power Director. From Three-Legged Couch, Microsoft had the Snapdragon 850 laptop and read very good things about it. So we're going to see, Trisha had to correct me. I had the wrong acronym for it, but it's ACPC. That's all going to be on ARM. ARM is going to wreck a lot of our sort of mid-range laptop, anything around that $1,000 laptop pricing, let's go ARM. Let's do it. I think it's going to be great. We just need some good software for it. From Matt Tyler, 98% of people would be happy with an S6 or a Pixel 1 and a tablet from Lenovo. Cheaper range, no need for all the expense for average consumers with families. And the only thing that holds that back, because I completely agree, the only thing that holds that back is software support. If these things were really getting good software support, not just, oh, we gave you a bug fix and we gave you a security patch, but software focused on streamlining the experience and maximizing the efficiency of that hardware-software synergy, like something that I think Apple still does reasonably well, then there's no reason why these phones wouldn't be 4-year devices easy. Again, also some hardware support because you want the ability to swap out the battery, but still, like, there's no reason why these shouldn't be longer term purchases than they really are. So I feel it's time to wrap this up just as I get a super chat from Curtis C. Curtis C, thank you so much for supporting production on this channel. I'm going to have a lot more to say about the OnePlus 7. I went a little heavy there, but again, I feel like you do not get that part of the conversation from Tana Does Tech with a super chat. Huawei, damn. That's hilarious. So, again, with the OnePlus 7 Pro, I am not impressed with a review that only talks about how you cover the basics on a more expensive or premium phone and then sets the bar on that at like insultingly low levels. There is going to be a lot to talk about with this current generations of phones as we evolve out of just this current smartphone ecosystem that we're currently in. So be on the lookout for some future videos because I think it's going to be some exciting stuff to talk about. I'm going to hold off on installing an Android Q beta because I really want to just use the phone how it is out of the box for a while first. But I'm going to be very excited to see if this stuff pans out because desktop mode isn't really going to be revolutionary for it's not going to be revolutionary for phones. It's going to be revolutionary for computers. It's going to upset computer markets, not phone markets. So this week, I'm going to be having a few more videos come out. Tomorrow, I'm going to finally be publishing my super long-term test drive, long-term review of the Apple Watch Series 4. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow. It's already live on Patreon. If you're on the Patreon, you can check out that long-term review there. I'm going to have some Pixel videos coming out. I'm going to have a G8 video coming out, some OnePlus 7 videos coming out, audio reviews, camera deep dives. I'm finally circling back to a Galaxy. There's going to be a Galaxy S10 camera review coming out soon now that I've finally finished collecting all the samples for that. So there's a lot going on. And then the end of this week, the beginning of next week, I'm going to be covering Computex for Newegg. So also make sure you check out the Newegg YouTube channel because we're going to have a bunch of videos from Computex going out there. And then when I get back from Computex, the future of this podcast, the live stream, will be on Twitch. Join us over on twitch.tv/SomeGadgetGuy. That's going to be the gig over there. Matt Tyler, another super chat. Lots of love for your channel and a small contribution. Thanks so much. And then Abraham Artemis with the hashtag more monies for Some Gadget Guy satellite. So, folks, thanks so much for watching, for sharing, for participating, being active participants in the content that you enjoy and that you care about. You can join us on the Reddit, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. But I will see you all in 2 weeks for the next installment of the live stream of this podcast. Next week, there will be a pre-recorded podcast. One of the creator chats is going up next Monday, so you can catch that on SomeGadgetGuy.com or on any of your favorite podcast catchers. And then it's all go on Twitch. So if you want to hit me up in the meantime, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the Twitches. So you can catch me all around there. And I'll catch you all next week in 2 weeks on another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sharing, for subscribing. I want you all to have an awesome tech week. There's a lot of crazy news out there, so try to have fun with your technology. Do awesome with your technology, and I'll catch you back here soon. Thank you so much. I love you all. Take care.